Hey, before you consider that Roth conversion, consider the 5-year rule.
Lightning strikes and then you're gonna know my name.
All right, so another video about Roth conversions, but this time I want to talk about the 5-year rule as it relates to Roth conversions, because there's a lot of confusion about this. People are mixing up the 5-year rule with Roth contributions versus Roth conversions. And they're different. They're different sets of rules when it comes to Roth conversions. Let's back up a little bit, rewind, and talk about the difference between a contribution and a conversion. And they're different sets of rules when it comes to Roth conversions. So a contribution is when you're contributing to a Roth IRA. Maybe you're paying it out of your income. You make a paycheck, and part of that, you say, I'm going to stroke a check, I'm going to deposit that into my Roth IRA. I'm making a contribution up to that certain limit, and those limits are in 2023, $6,500 if you're 50 or under 50, and $7,500 if you're over 50. Now, a conversion is where you already have an IRA, and you say, you know what, I want to take money out of that IRA, and I want to move it or convert it into my Roth IRA or into a Roth IRA that you just open up. That's called a conversion. So the difference is also with a contribution, those limits that we talked about, and you have earnings limit. If you make too much money, then you cannot contribute to a Roth IRA. I'll splash up those limits up on the screen so you can take a look at it. But with a Roth conversion, number one, there is no limit of how much you can make in order to convert money from your traditional IRA or 401k into a Roth. There's no earnings limit, and there's no maximum. You can convert as much as you want from your traditional IRA 401k into a Roth. So that's a conversion. Now let's get to this 5-year rule. And speaking of converting, now may be a good time to convert from a viewer of this channel to a subscriber. It's pretty easy. I mean, there's this little red button down there that says subscribe. You hit that, hit the thumbs up to like this video, ring that bell so you'll get notifications when I post other videos. Because I'm out here, spreading a wealth of information, helping folks like you along their personal finance journey. Okay, so that's the difference between contribution and conversion. Now the 5-year rule with conversions. It works like this. When you convert money from your traditional IRA or 401k into that Roth, then there is a clock. There's a 5-year rule. That clock starts ticking on January 1 in the year that you convert to that Roth. For example, you could have converted some money in December 31st of this year. The clock would have started ticking January 1st of this year. So in essence, it could be less than 5 years. So what happens with that 5 years? So conversions and the 5-year rule is really about the 10% penalty for the most part. So when you convert, boom, put it into your Roth IRA from your traditional IRA or 401k. Within 5 years of that conversion, or January 1 of that tax year, within that 5-year clock, if you took money out of that Roth IRA, then you would pay a 10% penalty. This is different than a contribution, because with a Roth IRA contribution, that 5-year clock says it's 5 years or 59 and a half, age 59 and a half, whichever is later, to avoid tax on earnings and a 10% penalty. However, with a Roth contribution, at any time, you can pull out what you put into it without paying taxes and without that 10% penalty. So this is different with a Roth conversion. That 5 years says within that 5 years, if you took your money out that you put in, you wouldn't pay taxes, but you would pay a 10% penalty. And so why is this? Why did the government, the IRS, stipulate this in all their rules? Well, let's think about it. You could have avoided some little loophole, and I think the IRS caught on years ago about this because think about it. Let's say you had money in your traditional IRA and something came up and you said, man, I need to get that money out. I know I'm going to pay taxes on it because it's pre-tax dollars, but I want to avoid that 10% penalty because if you pull money out of your traditional IRA before 59 and a half, you got taxes and you got a 10% penalty. So let's avoid the 10% penalty. What I'm going to do, I'm smart. I'm going to convert that to the Roth because there's no 10% penalty to convert. And then I would immediately pull the money out. Yeah, I've already paid taxes on the conversion, but I'm going to avoid the 10% penalty. So the IRS said, no. We're not going to have any of that. That's why the 5-year rule is. So they're going to stick it to you with that 10% penalty. That's the purpose of that 5-year rule. Usually you can pull out your contribution amount without taxes or penalty, but on conversions, it's different. Thus the 5-year rule. Within the 5 years, you pull money out, the converted amount, you're still going to pay a 10% penalty. No taxes, but a 10% penalty. Here's the other thing. Unlike a Roth contribution, that 5-year clock starts ticking with the first contribution, not subsequent contributions. Now with conversions, with every conversion you make carries its own 5-year rule where you cannot access that converted amount without a penalty. So a lot of people make multiple conversions. So they can make a conversion this year. Remember, there's no limit of how much you can convert. They make a conversion this year. That's a 5-year rule before you can access it without a 10% penalty. The next year you make another one. That's another 5-year clock starting to tick. And remember, it's January 1 of that year that you make the conversion. So that's the distinct difference. Every conversion carries its own 5-year clock, 5-year period to avoid the penalty. You can still pull out the converted amount without taxes, but penalties would apply when you pull out within that 5 years. Now, after 5 years that you've that converted amount, if you pull out just the converted amount, no taxes, no penalty. So let's break it down like this. Some examples. You're under 59 and a half. You converted from your traditional IRA to a Roth in 2023. The 5-year clock starts ticking on January 1 of 2023. You cannot access that converted amount or earnings without paying a penalty until January of 2028. Next year you make another one, that's another clock that starts ticking. Now, let's say you're over 59 and a half. Guess what? All bets are off. You do not pay that penalty, even if you converted. Let's say you converted from your traditional IRA or 401k at age 58, and a year and a half later, you didn't meet the 5-year rule. Doesn't matter. Once you turn 59 and a half, all bets are off. You can access that converted amount without paying any penalty. Now, you will pay taxes on the earnings if you haven't held it within 5 years, but no penalty after 59 and a half. So this is the order that will come out of your Roth IRA. The first to come out are Roth contributions. The second to come out is Roth conversions, and then earnings. So be aware of this 5-year rule. The main difference is it's with each conversion. Once you turn 59 and a half, you're free and clear of that 10% penalty. Now, Here are a few things to consider. Some people do multiple conversions over different years. You might do one every single year. There's no maximum amount. Maybe one year you did $10,000 from your IRA, then you did another $20,000 the next year, so on and so forth. Well, remember, each conversion carries its own 5-year rule. You need to keep up with this. So, a couple of ideas. Some people, when they do a Roth conversion, they'll open up a new Roth IRA and then convert it. And then that's how they track that 5-year rule on that pocket of money. And then next year they open another Roth IRA. So they could have multiple Roth IRAs, maybe 5 or 10 different ones, trying to keep up with that 5-year clock. Now, once you turn 59 and a half, remember all the penalties are gone. So then a lot of people will say, okay, I'm going to consolidate all of these IRAs at that time into one. You can do that, no worries. Another thing to consider is the backdoor Roth. We're not going to get into all the ins and outs. I'll put a link up here or up there. I don't know which corner it's going to pop up into, but I did a video on backdoor Roth IRAs of how, the mechanics of that works. But when you do a backdoor Roth, that's really a conversion. So backdoor Roth IRAs, that's treated as a conversion, and those too will carry its own 5-year rule. So a lot of things to consider. You really need to get with your tax advisor, your financial advisor that knows your particular situation in full when making these decisions and implementing these strategies. We do a free retirement checklist to kind of spot check these things for you. If you would like to speak with me personally, there's a link in the description below. Be sure to click that. Also, be sure to follow this channel. Again, hit that subscribe button. It really helps me out. We'll see you next time.